Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Applications for the government's $10,000 cash handout payout scheme will begin on June 21st. Eligible applicants are expected to receive the money on July 8th at the earliest.
While applications can be submitted through various channels, the Financial Secretary says online registration is the fastest way to pocket the money. Haley Joe has details.
Applications for the government's $10,000 cash handout scheme will run until the end of next year, and all permanent residents of Hong Kong aged 18 or above are eligible to apply. Applications will begin on June 21st at 7 a.m. Eligible people can apply either online or offline. Those who want to apply online can do so on their cyber banking platforms or websites of banks. They must provide a local phone number and a sole name bank account number. Those who use bank websites must also provide part of their Hong Kong ID number. People may also choose to fill in a paper registration form and send it to the government's designated P.O. Box, GPO Box number 18-2020, Hong Kong, or put it in their bank's Dropbox. They must provide their name, Hong Kong ID number, local phone number, bank name, and sole name bank account number. Those who prefer a check over a bank transfer should send their registration form to the government's designated P.O. Box or put it in a specified drop box at a post office. They should provide a contact address in Hong Kong and their post office code for check collection instead of bank details. The registration form can be obtained at branches of participating banks, post offices, and so on. It also can be downloaded from the websites of participating banks, Hong Kong Post, and the cash payout scheme.
The fastest way to get the money from the government is to apply full electronic registration. If the registration is to be done on paper form, obviously it will entail more administrative procedures, and the time required is longer.
The personal data we collected for this scheme will also be used for similar schemes like cash or non-cash handout or refund, if any, in the future. We'll set out clearly the purpose that we may use the data for future schemes.
The handout scheme is expected to benefit 7 million permanent residents of Hong Kong, including those who have moved overseas, and cost about $71 billion. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the Community Care Fund will launch a special subsidy scheme in September to benefit some of those not eligible for the $10,000 cash handout. The welfare chief says details will be announced in due course.
And we also started to explore how we can provide the same $10,000 for new arrivals. But if we receive application at the same time as the government's cash payout scheme, this might cause some confusion. Having considered this factor, we've announced that for our scheme, it will start receiving application in September.
Turning overseas now, large anti-racism protests in the United States continued almost 2 weeks after a black man was killed in police custody.
Demonstrators are asking that police units be defended. Peter Cavillas tells us more.
Thousands gathered in Minneapolis, the center of the crisis that has gripped America since George Floyd was killed in police custody. Many are calling on the force to be defunded, not reformed, and money to instead be poured into black communities. Citizens are angry at their mayor, Jacob Fry, for not agreeing to abolish the force. Sunday, 9 of the city council's 12 members vowed to dismantle the 800-member agency. There have been nationwide demonstrations after a video surfaced of a white police officer pinning George Floyd to the ground with his knee for close to 9 minutes. President Donald Trump ordered National Guard troops to withdraw from Washington, D.C. after he controversially brought them in during protests. His decision unleashed a torrent of criticism, including from senior military officials. People gathered in New York demanding an end to racial injustice. The rally was calm compared with previous gatherings. As a result, a citywide curfew will end due to peaceful protests over the last few days. And mourners will be able to view George Floyd's casket Monday in his hometown of Houston. the final stop of a series of memorials in his honor. Floyd's funeral will be held on Tuesday. He will be laid to rest next to his mother, Larcinia Floyd. Peter Corveos, TVB News.
Meanwhile, thousands of people also took to the streets in Europe again on Sunday to show their support for the Black Lives Matter movement. Protesters in the English city of Bristol vented their anger by toppling the statue of a 17th century slave trader. Protests against the death of George Floyd continued in Europe, with notable demonstrations taking place in England. In the southwestern city of Bristol, protesters toppled a statue and dumped it into the harbour. Local footage shows demonstrators attaching ropes to the statue of Edward Colston before pulling it down and dumping it into the water. Colston was a prominent Bristol merchant in the 17th century, but a great deal of his business was in the African slave trade, which makes him a controversial figure in the city. Still, Britain's Home Secretary was unimpressed with the stunt.
I think that is utterly disgraceful, and that speaks to the acts of disorder, public disorder, that actually have now become a distraction from the cause in which people are actually protesting about and trying to empathise and sympathise with.
The Colston statue wasn't the only historic sculpture to have been targeted by protesters. In London, protesters defaced the base of the statue of former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill outside Parliament, crossing out his last name and spray painting "was a racist" underneath. They also taped a Black Lives Matter sign around its midsection. Churchill is considered a national hero by many as the man who helped guide the country to victory during World War II. But to his detractors, Churchill's views on the superiority of white people, his refusal to distribute wheat to starving people in India in 1943, and disparaging remarks about Mahatma Gandhi are evidence of his crueler and racist side. Later in the evening, clashes broke out between protesters and police after tens of thousands took to the streets for a Black Lives Matter demonstration earlier in the day. A group of protesters clashed with police outside the Foreign Office after one man was arrested. Tweeting late on Sunday evening, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said anti-racism protests in Britain have been subverted by thuggery, warning those responsible will be held to account.
Hong Kong reported one new COVID-19 infection today. The new case is a returnee from Pakistan.
Meanwhile, the city also entered the second phase of school resumption, and attractions like Ocean Park and Disneyland are poised to reopen. Jackie Lin reports.
Amid the pitter-patter of a heavy downpour, these school gates are once again bustling back to life. This as primary 4 to secondary 2 students return to campus after 4 months away.
I feel so excited because I can see my teacher and my friends.
But vestiges of unease linger as schools grapple with the new normal of teaching during the pandemic.
To be honest, for a certain extent, as teachers, we are slightly worried. But when we think about our school, we have well prepared everything. I'm sure the kids will be very safe in our school.
For schools in Shangshui, some cross-border students haven't been able to return to school due to travel restrictions. A principal says online classes are available for those affected. Outside schools, attempts to reinstate some semblance of normalcy as well. They include the government's decision to reopen Ocean Park this Saturday.
People have been really hungry to go out and enjoy themselves, and they've been waiting for attractions to open. This will be great news to a lot of Hong Kong people so that they can enjoy a few days away from Hong Kong, but in Hong Kong.
Kids under 11 can enter the park for free, while adults are given a 30% discount on tickets. Disneyland fans can also expect the Magic Kingdom to reopen their gates this summer. A green light for the annual book fair in mid-July too, which will be the first large exhibition event since the pandemic. Some hopes for the Wanderlust too, as the government is exploring possibilities for bilateral travel arrangements known as travel bubbles.
We're also knocking on doors of some government where we see their fight against the epidemic has achieved some early success. But we will be highly selective.
Destinations considered include Thailand, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
And a warm welcome back to TVB News. Deputy Director of the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Zhang Xiaoming, says greater space for one country, two systems comes with stricter baseline for national security.
Zhang made the remark during an online seminar marking the 30th anniversary of the promulgation of the Basic Law.
Zhang Xiaoming began his speech by citing what the late elder statesman Deng Xiaoping had foreseen during the Sino-British negotiations in the 1980s. He quoted Deng as saying, "Will there be times when things threatening national security happen in the SAR? When that time comes, should Beijing get into it?" Zhang said, when it's unlikely that national security laws will be enacted in Hong Kong, central government intervention is inevitable. He added, "Some friends told me Beijing's move this time was forced by the city's opposition camps and radical forces." He said, "I agree in certain aspects because they treated the central government and the SAR's tolerance as signs of weakness." Zhang added that a stricter baseline for national security would mean a safer Hong Kong, highlighting the city's strengths. Zhang also said that experts have been suggesting that Hong Kong need a handover for the second time. He stressed that if the situation in Hong Kong continues to be dominated by opposition and external forces, one country, two systems will end. Zhang Yong, vice chairperson of the Basic Law Committee, then delivered his keynote speech. The other vice chairperson of the committee, Maria Tam, later moderated a dialogue session joined by the city's first Justice Chief Elsie Leung and HKU Professor Albert Chan.
Organisers of a public assembly marking 1 year since the beginning of social unrest in Hong Kong postponed the event by 1 week to June the 19th, a day after the public gathering ban expires. But they're calling on people to join a sing-along on the night of June the 12th.
The team will postpone the assembly until the 19th of June, which is the day right after the cancellation of the prohibition on group gathering. If the government keep postponing the prohibition, the team will keep applying for the assembly right after the cancellation of the prohibition on group gathering.
Hong Kong has experienced heavy rain for the last 3 days, with the amber rainstorm warning being in force for 2 hours today. A water spout was spotted this morning in the Chek Lap Kok area. The phenomenon lasted for around a minute. The observatory issued the amber rainstorm warning at around 9 this morning. The thunderstorms warning was also in force as the city continued to experience heavy rainfall for most of the afternoon. Some areas like Tai Po and Tsuen Wan were swamped with over 100 millimeters of rainfall. The observatory expects better weather starting on Wednesday.
Well, customs officers at the airport have seized $25 million worth of fish and maws suspected to be from Tuboda, an endangered species. It is the largest smuggling case of its kind on record. Last Thursday, officers at the airport came across a suspicious cargo shipment, 20 boxes of fresh fish sent in from Los Angeles. Fresh fish are seldomly imported from America, and the goods were being sent to a commercial center. So they opened the boxes and found the fish maws weighing 160 kilos hidden among unrestricted fish fillets. Authorities have launched an investigation and arrested 5 men aged between 36 and 57 in Yuen Long and Fan Ling.
Sources claim Huawei's chip inventory may begin to run out in months as the firm struggles to find a way to make the products on its own. This came after the U.S. tightened its export of chips to Chinese firms. Caleb Leung has the details.
It appears America's decision to tighten export rules on chip supply to Chinese tech firms is starting to have an effect. Last month, the U.S. government banned the sale of these essential parts with American technology to China. Bloomberg News reports Huawei's stockpiles of certain self-designed chips for telecom equipment will run out early next year. Quoting sources, the report said the company has so far failed to find a solution to this dilemma. Huawei can still buy chips from a third party like Samsung, but not in the volume it needs. That could force Huawei to make costly compromises on the performance of its basic products, the report said. The latest ban may also have implications for the mainland's 5G network rollout, for which Huawei is the dominant purveyor. To make matters worse, the UK is looking at the possibility of phasing Huawei out of its 5G network completely by 2023. Beijing's ambassador to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, warned China may retaliate. According to the Sunday Times, Liu warned the move could spoil plans for Chinese companies to build nuclear plants and a high-speed rail network in the UK. The Daily Telegraph also reported HSBC is worried it could be caught in the middle of the spat and may face reprisals in China. The bank's chairman Mark Tucker has already warned Downing Street about this. In the meantime, Huawei proclaimed its innocence despite accusations its apparatus could be used to spy. In an interview with the Financial Times, the company's vice president Victor Zhang stressed the group was not controlled by Beijing. He also added if Huawei's equipment is removed from the UK's 5G networks, Britain's economy would suffer billions of pounds of lost growth. But according to the Times newspaper, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is preparing to announce laws to prevent foreign takeovers that pose risks to national security. This came amid growing concern about the influence of China. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Beijing says a free trade port in Hainan is not meant to compete directly with Hong Kong. President Xi Jinping unveiled plans a week ago. The proposed measures include relaxed visa restrictions, lower taxes, freer flow of capital, and reduced tariffs on goods. Today, an official said the positioning and the key industries for development of the Hainan Free Trade Port and Hong Kong are different. The port complements more than it competes, and it will not negatively impact Hong Kong. The central government believes it will further strengthen joint development with the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area and ensure the stability of one country, two systems. The announcement comes amid rising fears that the new national security law could hit the city's standing in the global economy.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Bye for now.